It's been close to 3 months since I released that video talking about Your Teacher AI, and that tool has come so far, so much farther than I could have possibly expected it to come, that I didn't even think I was going to be needing to make another follow-up video for at least 6 months. For those of you who haven't watched the previous video, you can check it out right here, but for everyone else who has, we have got some big things to go over. I mean, so many more languages, it's cheaper, and the voices are so much better. The biggest thing I think people talked about in the last video that I did was the fact that the voices sucked. And they did suck, but they've done so many changes to the biggest things that people were complaining about. When I started learning Italian to give myself an edge when I go to Italy, and when I went and learned it and all that stuff, it really had the basic conversational skills that it was able to teach me, but slow, was laggy, it would always go off topic and things like that. The cool thing is, now it's made so many more advancements and leaps and bounds further, I can really see this as being something that is going to supplement or even replace language tutors for people who are just casually looking to learn a new language. I mean, there's so many things that they've built into this now, so many different languages that you could really just pick up the basics from any country that you're visiting without ever having to talk to a real person. And that's insane to me. So before we get to the new features, let's quickly recap. In the last video, I talked about the fact that I thought that there was actual potential that this could replace human language tutors one day for casual language users. I mean, if somebody wanted to learn the very basics of a country that they're going to, and they're going to be traveling to a lot of countries, rather than going and getting lessons from somebody like a human tutor that would, train them and be awfully expensive to actually go learn, having an AI tutor that they could just flip to whatever language they wanted to learn the basics of would be much more efficient, cost-effective, and most importantly, convenient. The ability to learn it on their own time. That was the benefits that I talked about, but the drawbacks, of course, were there. The voices weren't that good, it was pretty expensive, and it really didn't have everything that a beginner would need. You really would have to coach it a lot more than it was coaching you. And often it just wasn't intuitive enough to be at the point where I would think that it would be marketable to a large group of people. But I held out hope that it was eventually going to get to that point with enough time, love, and development, and it's getting pretty close to where that point is. I mean, even now, the tool has so many different languages that it's very attractive as a product or solution for casual people wanting to learn a new language. And I'm happy to report that, of course, the reason I'm making a follow-up video is because they've done exactly that. Not only have they addressed pretty much all of the points that I discussed in the last video, but they have made leaps and bounds further than what I could have ever possibly imagined. I mean, the amount of languages that are on there now is way more than I could possibly have ever imagined that they would put on in just a few short months. And the actual way that the tutors interact with you, the customization that they have, and the fact that you have more tutors to work off of is really something that's making this tool much more of a greater investment to me, who spent $400 and whatever how many dollars USD when I originally bought it, now more so than it was when it first launched, which I kind of expected, but not this much. So let's start off with the most important point. How many languages are there on this thing exactly? All right, we're gonna do them in rapid fire order here, starting in 3, 2, 1. Arabic, Bulgarian, Chinese, Croatian, Czech, Danish, Dutch, English, Finnish, French, German, Greek, Indonesian, Italian, Korean, Malay, Polish, Portuguese, Romanian, Russian, Slovak, Spanish, Swedish, Turkish, Ukrainian. Whew, that was a lot. And I can imagine that in the coming weeks and months, the amount of languages that are going to be on this thing are only going to grow. And the cool thing is for this too, they've added on more tutors for you to interact with based on the conversational skills that you're looking to develop. I mean, if you're wanting to practice rizzing up some girl in a foreign country, and if that's your goal, well, you can practice that with somebody who's close to your similar age in the language that you want to talk in. Or if you're wanting to have a nice old conversation with an elderly man who's sitting by himself at a coffee shop that you otherwise would not be able to talk with, well, there's that too. I mean, the customization here really provides something that I don't think I see a lot of other language tutoring applications actually offering. And I think that's important because when you're actually learning a new language, the goal of why you're learning that new language is really the thing that is most important. Why are you learning that new language? Who are you learning that language to talk to? For example, when I was in Bologna, Italy with my friends, we actually met some retired Italian Navy members, and we just had some nice conversations with them. Using the brief bit of Italian we knew, and they knew a little bit of English as well, we were able to chat about the different things that they did in their lives, what life was like in Italy in the 70s, and what life was like being in the Italian Navy. All these cool things that we were able to learn from talking with a local that we wouldn't have learned if we just didn't know how to say piacere di conoscerti. Because to be fair, I mean, I could have gone on Google Translate and looked up things like, how are you doing? But for this tool, It offers you that because it's powered by GPT-3 and GPT-4, which is a tutor with context. So even though the tutors have the context, the ability for you to direct it based on what your goal is, learning that language, is what makes this thing better than any other tool that I've seen. And the fact that it solved pretty much all the problems that I wanted it to solve is pretty incredible. Now, in the last video, I talked a lot about Italian because that was the specific language that I was wanting to learn. But for this video, let's spice it up a little bit. You know, I'm Canadian, so let's do French. I want to improve my French vocabulary more than what I was just taught in high school and improve my actual conversational skills. Well, when I click on the French language, I'm met with a bunch of different tutors, 6 as a matter of fact. I've got Lucas Bernard, Gabriel Thomas, Pauline Martin, Ollie Richards, Xiaomanyc, obviously who's the YouTuber who's behind this whole thing and really the one who's marketing it the most, and Claire Dubois, you know, all with different varying ages, and it talks about what they graduate from. Now, of course, these are all different AI personas that are meant to be actually set, but for these types of people, you can actually have different conversations. Maybe for Gabriel Thomas, who's 18, he's a mountain climber and dislikes urban noise. If you want to have a conversation about mountain climbing, he'd be your guy. Or what about Claire Dubois? She's a history professor. Say if you wanted to have a conversation about, you know, the history of art in France. Well, obviously Claire Dubois would be your teacher. And I think it's going to get to the point eventually where you can actually customize your own AI language teacher. If you've been around here for a while, you would know that on this channel I talk a lot about prompt engineering. Prompt engineering basically being knowing how to ask the right question to a language model to get the right answer that you are looking for. Now, think about this for learning a new language. You're able to customize a teacher. What do you want to talk about? What do you want them to talk about? How you want them to respond to your questions? If I go to my profile, I can actually see my teacher preferences, which wasn't there in the last update. It has a base language that you can select when selecting a new language to learn. Say you're Arabic and you want to learn French. Say you're Ukrainian and you want to learn French. You can select whatever your native language is as the base language and then select the language you want to learn. This is not just restricted to English speakers, which I think is huge and provides so much more opportunity for Xiaomanyc and his team to actually market this around the world, because it doesn't matter what base language you start in. You could start in, you know, Arabic and learn French. And if all the languages cross over as interchangeably as just it appears to be here, this is going to be a game changer in the face of just learning any new language casually. A lot of people in my comment section on that video complain that, hey, the teacher talks really slow. Well, they've added that too. You can decide how fast your teacher should speak, what level of formality the teacher can use. You can choose how often the teacher corrects your mistakes now. I mean, if you're somebody who really wants to learn it and wants the teacher to correct every single thing you do down to the most minute detail, you can choose that. Or if you're someone who's a little bit more laid back and just wants to practice having, you know, that basic conversation with somebody in a different language, you can have that too. And of course, if your base language is anything other than English, then the tutor can just respond in your target language, or maybe respond in your target language plus a little bit of English, or primarily respond in your target language, but also uses your home language to increase your comprehension. It really has customization to what you exactly want. So yes, and I just double checked, they did lower the prices. Somebody actually called me out in the comment section of the last video because they said, oh, the price is only $197. And I was like, huh, well, I didn't pay $197, so, and then I went and looked just now. Yeah, so next year, my invoice is gonna be $197 US. But this year's invoice was the price I paid that I talked about in the last video. So yes, they have lowered it, which I think is probably the best thing to do, because maybe they weren't getting enough signups, and you know, if you want to have early adopters in your product, making it insanely expensive probably isn't the way to go. So I think this is a smart choice on their behalf. Now, the most important thing that I know you've been waiting for. How do the voices actually sound? Well, if you'll remember, last time I did this, it was with Leonardo Russo, and the voice sounded a little,
Posso avere un tavolo per due? Per favore.
So this time around, I'm gonna pick Leonardo Russo again, have the same basic conversations in terms of talking and ordering things from a restaurant, and we'll see exactly how it sounds. I want you to role play as being a waiter in a restaurant and getting me seated. I will begin speaking in Italian now. Buonasera. Posso avere un tavolo per tre, per favore?
Certo, signore. Un tavolo per tre. Venite qui per una cena speciale?
That is how you scale an AI language tutor software as a service. How did that other language sound again?
Posso avere un tavolo per due.
Now this is why I love when software as a service companies build in public. It means that when there is a specific part of your application that is just bad, your community will tell you. And by working with your community and listening to your community and taking the advice that you get from your community and using it to directly improve the application, focusing on the features that your community tells you are the ones that are most important to be fixed first, that is how you build a successful software as a service. Because for this, when it originally started out, if that was just the final product, nobody would have bought it because the voices weren't good, the price was too expensive, and it really just didn't have the flexibility and intuitiveness that it needed to scale. This product, yeah, I can definitely see this being something that I would use and I'm going to continue to pay for pretty much every year. For 200 American, actually going and learning any possible language that I want to learn and whatever I choose to learn it as with whoever I want to learn it with, and on an application that keeps getting better and better and better because it has a dev team that listens to the community, yes, this is what I want. This is what I want in a software as a service product, so I will remain a loyal customer because I'm getting value out of this. And it keeps getting better every day. And that's the reason I wanted to do a follow-up video to this, because as we continue, I might have to make every 3 months or so a new video talking about some amazing features or new languages that they've added or something intuitive that has just made it better. And as it continues to scale, I know that I definitely will be supplementing my language learning with a tool like this, because for all the reasons that I talked about last time, actually can work 24/7 around the clock. I can chat with whoever I want to about whatever I want to. I kind of direct it, so although some people might see that as a disadvantage, I see it as a benefit because it means that that AI is not specifically locked into one pattern or one type of tutor or lecture. But for this, now, with those 3 months that have passed since I made the last video, it's cheaper, the voices are better, you can fine tune it with your particular preferences, it has more options available based on who you want to actually be talking to, and overall, it's just a more intuitive application. And that's the reason why I think Your Teacher AI is going to continue to get better and better, and will eventually get to that state where even if it doesn't replace language tutors on a whole, it will definitely supplement a good portion of language learning in the future. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Josh, and as always, if you want to stick around and see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Or how should I ask? Maybe I should ask Leonardo here. How do I say see you in the next one?
You can say "Ci vediamo alla prossima." It means see you in the next one. Now switch back to Italian and keep practicing. Che avete in programma per stasera?
My name is Josh. Ci vediamo alla prossima. See you in the next one.